And within the next hour and a half, we're going to get an announcement of the new energy cap. The Liberal Democrats are calling on the government to take more action to protect people from high energy costs. And here to discuss those proposals is the party's leader, Sadiq Ed Davey. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us here on Breakfast. So we expect Ofgem are going to say that the energy price cap comes down, but the average household bill could be going up, we understand, by about £500 because the government support scheme comes to an end. Would you keep that scheme going?
We need that support. We'd actually be giving people more support. Millions of families and pensioners are struggling out there. I've never seen anything like it before. People are unable to afford their rents, their food, increased numbers of people at food banks. And what the government's response is to increase people's energy bills by £500 this coming April. That's just wrong. They seem completely out of touch, and they're saving all the money that they had budgeted. And what Liberal Democrats are saying is, no, use that money to help people now, to help businesses now who are also struggling. And if we do that, we can cut inflation for people and we can boost the economy. That seems a sensible, prudent approach, rather than this rather reckless and out-of-touch approach from the Conservatives.
I suppose the government would say it's the prudent thing to do is not to spend money on a very expensive scheme if they can possibly help it, to try to claw back some of the money they spent during the pandemic and on this scheme already.
Well, John, they budgeted over £12 billion for energy support. What Liberal Democrats are saying is they should continue to use that money that they budgeted for energy bill support. And if they did, with a slightly higher windfall tax, which Liberal Democrats were the first party to propose, with that extra money, they could both cut the energy price guarantee and save people on average £500 and introduce a package for small businesses and the least well-off in society. So our proposals are very affordable, they're very prudent, but they would also help people and businesses who are really suffering. And what I find quite difficult to understand with this government is when they see people unable to put food on the table for their kids, unable to heat their homes, businesses facing closing down or having to lay off lots of people, the government response is to put up people's energy bills. That looks incompetent and just out of touch. So that's why Liberal Democrats have come up with this package today, and we just hope the Conservative government actually listens to what the Liberal Democrat opposition is saying.
And in 3 months' time, if there's another shock and prices have gone up, do you then extend it for another 3 months and another 3 months? I mean, I suppose the problem is that this becomes a permanent fixture, a permanent expense for the government.
Well, they would also get more money from the windfall tax. So Liberal Democrats have said all along, when we were the first party to propose a windfall tax on the super profits of the oil and gas giants, that was the right way in this crisis of high energy prices to recycle the money from these firms who are making these massive profits, not because they've done anything, but because President Putin invaded Ukraine in an outrageous way. Recycle that money from those oil and gas companies to people and businesses who are struggling with the high energy bills. That is a thing that a fair government would do. And that's why Liberal Democrats are saying give people and businesses a fair deal through using this money from the windfall tax to help people who are struggling.
You know, critics, though, say that if you take too much money away from those admittedly very rich energy companies, that's money that they can no longer invest in sustainable green energy going forward.
Well, I disagree with them. First of all, if you listen to what the chief executives of BP and Shell say, they will continue to invest even if there's a windfall tax. Moreover, when I was Secretary of State and the Liberal Democrats were running energy power, we quadrupled renewable power without any help from the oil and gas giants. They weren't investing, and yet Liberal Democrats managed with our policies to dramatically increase things like offshore wind. We made Britain the world leader in offshore wind without any help from the oil and gas companies. So I don't think government should take that. It looks like the Conservatives are listening to the oil and gas companies far too much. What they ought to do is listen to the millions of families and pensioners and businesses who are really struggling.
Can we talk about Brexit as well? It looks like it could be a big day as far as Northern Ireland is concerned. A deal potentially between the government and the EU. Obviously, you've got to see the details, but from what you've heard, you'll back it.
Yeah, Liberal Democrats would welcome a deal. Obviously, we want to see it and read it and listen to the government. But we do need a deal. The Conservatives have mismanaged this for so long. It's hit people and businesses in Northern Ireland, but it's also undermined our economy. And I really think the government have got to get their act together. Whether the Prime Minister will be able to sell it to his backbenchers because the Conservative Party is now so divided, I don't know, let's wait and see. But Liberal Democrats will do the responsible thing. If there's a deal that can help Northern Ireland and help the British economy, we'll back it.
I suppose it depends what kind of backing that means, because it's by no means certain that there will actually be a vote in the House of Commons on this, is it? I mean, do you expect a vote?
Well, there should be a vote on something that's so important. I think it's right that Parliament gets to have a say, and I think most people out there, most of your viewers, would be astonished for something that's dragged on so long, for it not to be put to the elected representatives, their elected representatives. And it may well be that the government's just too scared because it can't unite its party. So I think it would be the wrong thing not to put it to a vote. But I do hope we can get a deal. And what Liberal Democrats are saying, we will act responsibly in the national interest. It's our patriotic duty to get behind a deal that helps Northern Ireland and gives some little boost to, much needed boost to our economy. And so we'll do that, assuming when we've seen the deal that it does make sense.
And you'd still like us to go back into the EU though, wouldn't you?
Well, what we are saying now, because I don't think that's possible at the moment, that the relationship between the UK government and the EU is so bad under this government that that's unfortunately not something that can be considered. What we do want is a much closer trading relationship with our European colleagues. That's what would really help people. It would help businesses. The red tape that's come because of the Conservatives' mismanagement of this has been a disaster for our economy. We want to work more closely with European allies on things like crime reduction. You know, international crime gangs, they need an international response. We like to see more work with our European partners on security to keep us safe. These are things that ought to be happening. But because the government has been so ideological and so divided on this, these real opportunities to make Britain more prosperous and safer have been dropped.
OK, Sir Ed Davey, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.